Fáilte, and welcome to our studio series. Recently, a participant in our Wednesday night masterclass sent me some photographs asking about some advice about the suitability of these for a painting. And I thought it would be a great opportunity to talk for a little bit about the thinking we go through when we're using photographs for our painting material. Of course, there's no substitute for working from real life, but the reality in today's world is more often than not you're working from photographs, especially if your subject matter is street scenes and traffic and people, because painting on plein air is just not practical and positively hazardous to your health in some cases. One thing to keep in mind when you're out on a photo shoot gathering material is your objectives are quite different from those of a photographer pursuing that hobby in its own right. The photographer is looking for something to perhaps frame, put on a wall, or the money shot to be published in a magazine, or even just posting stuff to social media. Your objectives are quite different. You're just gathering material for your painting. No one else is going to see these photographs other than you, and so that means a few things. First of all, the quality does not have to be as good. If it's a little bit out of focus or a little bit underexposed, no big deal. The other thing is you're not looking for that money shot. You very seldom will get a single photograph that's going to completely serve your purposes for a painting. More often than not, composition in this photograph is good, but you like the people in the other one or whatever, and you're building a composite of several photographs. In fact, having that perfect shot for the purposes of a painting actually can be a hindrance, because you end up trying to reproduce the photograph rather than doing your own thing with the painting. Okay, so let's take a look at these photographs, shall we? So as you can see, this is a lovely scene of some buskers. It looks very promising, but we have a few issues. Look here, see these angles? When you're taking photographs, don't just focus on the main subject matter. Be aware of what's happening at the peripheries. The photographer had some choices here. They could have taken the shot dead on, straight ahead, or at an oblique angle. The straight ahead view would be more focused on the band, and the whole setting would look more like a stage. The oblique view would capture more of the street, putting the scene in the perspective of the street and taking in perhaps some bystanders. The problem here is that we have neither one nor the other. It's just enough of an angle to feel awkward. So the message here is, don't just focus on the subject, the musicians in this case, but watch what's happening around the edges. The other lesson is, and you'll hear this several times today, take lots of shots, walk around the subject matter. And be careful, by the way, not to back into oncoming traffic, because yes, I've done that more than once. Try the vertical perspective as well. So if you can, get down on your hunkers to get a low angle, or climb up on something if you can do so safely to get more of a bird's eye view. Unfortunately, in this case, we only have these photographs to work with, and this is probably going to be the hardest thing to fix. Next, let's take a look at the composition of the musicians. There's too much daylight between each one. This makes a lot of sense for the musicians themselves, especially the fiddler, who probably needs lots of elbow room. But aesthetically, a tighter composition will be more pleasing, and perhaps one or two overlapping figures. That will give us a more satisfying arrangement. So let's see what we can do. I should mention here that I'm going to be using some photo editing software, Adobe Photoshop Elements as it happens, for the purposes of this demo. But this is not going to be a lesson on using Photoshop. I'm not an expert in Photoshop at all, far from it. Anyone who's watching this who is proficient in this software is probably going to be cringing when they see the butchery that is about to follow. But I'll come back to what I said earlier. We are not looking for a perfectly doctored photograph here. Nobody's going to see the result other than ourselves. All we're doing is cobbling together something so that we can get started with our painting. Don't waste valuable time fiddling around with the software looking for that perfect edit. It's just not worth the effort. In fact, you don't need photo software at all. You could just print out a couple of copies of the photographs and do some cutouts, or best of all, just open up your sketch pad and sketch. The software approach just happens to be convenient here as a way to demonstrate the thinking. Okay, so we're going to start by blanking out these figures. Then I'm going to use a skewing tool to straighten the perspective. This gives me some really bad distortion, but that's okay for now. I'm just looking to create a canvas to drop our figures onto. Next we're going to do an outline around the accordion player and drop him in somewhere. Then we'll take the fiddler. Notice, however, that the accordion player is facing to the right, whereas the fiddler is facing to the left, out of the picture. This will have the effect of closing off the flow of the composition prematurely. So let's see what happens if we can reverse the fiddler and here, tuck him in just behind the accordionist. The bass and guitar player are nicely set up as they are, so we're just going to drop them in as is and just snug them up tight against the first two. And finally, we have the mandolin player. Now, he is facing to the left, but that's fine at this point. It nicely rounds up the group. Now we have some space to the right of the band. What are we going to do here? Well, this seems like a nice place to have some spectators, doesn't it? But we don't have any. So here's another lesson. Don't stop shooting when you think you have what you want for your painting. Look around you. Take some random shots of people. They might be watching the band, or they could be just shopping, chatting on a street corner, doesn't matter. Look for interesting figures. Someone walking a dog with bags of shopping perhaps, or wearing a colourful shirt or jacket. Take lots of shots, people walking towards you, walking away from you, standing in profile, etc. Because you don't know in the end what you're going to need. And it's best to gather that material during the same photo shoot. That way you'll have consistent lighting, consistent clothing, etc. and they'll sit more naturally into your composition. So as I said, we don't have anything else besides these photographs to work on at the moment. So I just went through some random photos on my hard drive, came up with this couple here. They're looking roughly in the right direction, so let's see if they will fit. So that looks okay, but they're a bit overexposed for our scene, so I'm going to have to darken them down. Okay, so now let's scribble in something for the guys to sit on, create some shadows, working very roughly here, maybe bring back some of the background elements like the windows. And here we are. It's rough and ready, but when we compare it back to the original photograph, I hope you can see what we've been talking about. The composition is tighter, it's more intimate, your eye flows more naturally from one player to the next, and the background and the two pillars provide a nice internal frame. I think the couple of spectators provides another layer of interest. No longer are we just watching the band, we're watching people watching the band, and I feel that immerses us deeper into the scene. So the last point to make, use your mock-up to block in your underpainting and establish your overall composition, etc. But revert back to your original photographs in the latter stages of your painting when you need more detail. So I hope that was useful. Let us know in the comments below what challenges you faced when using photographic material for your paintings. Maybe it'll give us a topic for a following video. But for now, bye!